at you. First episode of the new year. Wishing everyone, of course, a happy and healthy and prosperous 2025. A lot of games over the last few days. Teams have been shuffling around the table. Some teams making some power moves. So let's get into the results. The first game that we want to recap is that Newcastle Aston Villa game. At the beginning of the season, we were debating where these two teams would end up, trying to figure out which of those teams would breach the top four. And we had a bit of a back and forth on that. And the season has followed our debate in a sense, because Villa was a bit higher in the table. Now they're falling back. Newcastle with a pretty powerful surge over the last few weeks. 4 wins out of the last 5 games. Should have been a real battle. And it started out as a battle. We saw Villa with John Duran, who's been earmarked to have a breakout season, break into that starting lineup, get his chance, and with a bit of indiscipline, didn't make the most of his chance, right? Put his team under pressure by getting that red card.
That was a harsh red card, though.
I think it was a bit harsh. But it could have gone either way. And as a result, Newcastle were able to just take command of the game. Saw Joelinton, again, one of the most physical players in the Premier League, dominate. Saw Guimarães dominate. You saw Isaac again getting on the score sheet, Gordon getting on the score sheet. So Newcastle finding their offensive form, getting their star players contributing. And it was a difficult day for Villa, but Newcastle just riding the wave at the moment, racking up a bunch of wins, and now they're in 5th position on the table, pushing for that top 4 spot. So well done to Newcastle.
Yeah, well done to Newcastle. Well done to their midfield 3, which is now, for me, looking like the most informed midfield 3 in the league. Joelinton, Guimarães, Tonali. We saw Eddie Howe recently make this tweak to the midfield 3, putting Tonali as number 6 with Joelinton on the left and Guimarães on the right, and it's paying dividends. They just look rock solid, physical, skillful, powerful, really no weaknesses. And I think the rest of the Premier League is on notice. And now they understand what Newcastle has to offer. And it's part of why we were debating where they would finish in terms of the top 4 earlier in the season, knowing that Tonali would be back. And now we're starting to see him get back into the groove after being out for so long with that suspension. So let's see if they can climb the table. What they also were able to do was to go to Manchester United, a struggling Manchester United. We all know that Amorim and the entire club, frankly, are having a very, very difficult time. And Newcastle coasted at Old Trafford, winning 2-0, making the United team look just like they had no idea what was going on, no continuity, no understanding between the back 3. Both goals that were given up by Manchester United in that game were goals where there was a gap in between 2 of the 3 defenders, the 3 center backs, and whether it was Joelinton or Isak, they just coasted right in between the 2 center backs and nodded the ball home. Now we hear Manchester United really talking about a crisis, talking about relegation, and all of those things I think are valid worries with a team that's in this type of form. And what I've seen, at least in the media, has been a lot of talk about the players, kind of where you were going on our last episode. Are the players good enough? Maybe they're not good enough to be in the top 4, but these players are good enough to be above the 14th, 15th spot in the league, at least in my opinion. And Amorim has been adamant about his new system, the 3-4-2-1. Players are not taking to it. The personnel doesn't seem to fit the formation. So we wonder what's going to give. What will change, if anything, going forward? Because what's happening now, if it continues to happen, we will see Manchester United in a relegation battle in a couple of months' time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit hyperbolic to say that they're going to be, in a relegation battle. I don't think they will be, but I do think that these players are average Premier League players. One of the reasons why United are conceding so many goals at the moment is because teams have identified that they're very weak in the air, right? I mean, in a particular part of their defensive lineup. I've been impressed with Martinez. He's looked very composed on the ball, but teams have identified that they can exploit his lack of aerial capability. And you see United, one of the worst teams in defending corners, for example. In the Newcastle game, they exploited that space, basically targeting his position. two of the Premier League title hopefuls who have had different fortunes over the last weeks, Chelsea and Arsenal. Chelsea, a team who were high-flying in the previous weeks, hit a bit of a rough patch, a bit of turbulence, and actually has coincided with the absence of who I think is their midfield general, Lavia. And we talked about him, when he was substituted, and we didn't know actually why he was substituted. It turned out that he was injured and he hasn't played since. And since then, Chelsea struggled in terms of results. It's not a coincidence, actually. Caicedo has definitely proven his worth this season. However, I think that partnership is what makes Chelsea thrive. It gives Chelsea that stability for the offensive players to have that confidence that they can really go at teams, attack teams. And I think they've been missing Lavia, and I think they will return to form once he's back.
Yeah, I agree. They are missing Romeo Lavia. I would also say they're missing Wesley Fofana in the back. I think without these two players, the level of the team just goes down from being competing with elite in terms of talent to not quite being as good as some of the top teams anymore. I think both of them are slated to come back sometime in January. I agree with you. I see this as a bump in the road rather than a trend that will continue. I think once they're back fit and in form, we'll see a better Chelsea. But at the same time, we have talked about the depth of the team and how they basically have two full squads, right? And I think what we're learning is maybe they don't have two full squads. They don't have players who can come in and perform week in, week out. We saw them lose to a promoted side this past weekend, 2-0 against Ipswich on the road. So even without Lavia, even without Fofana, you would want to see a team that has a Cole Palmer pulling the strings, being able to overcome an Ipswich team that's trying to avoid relegation. But again, we won't set off the alarm just yet, but I do think we have to keep an eye on Chelsea and whether Maresca has the ability to tinker the way we've seen an Arteta tinker in the last couple of game weeks to still get results. I'm not sure, because what I also saw from Chelsea in this last game was a heavily rotated side. We saw Nico Jackson on the bench. We saw Pedro Neto on the bench, Jadon Sancho on the bench. The players who came in, and Nkunku, João Felix, and Madueke, they weren't able to make the grade, and they didn't really affect the game in a positive way. On the other hand, just contrasting Maresca's tinkering with Arteta's tinkering, we've seen Arteta be forced to rotate the squad because of the injury of Bukayo Saka, come up with some new options, and he's doing quite well with what he's done. What do you think about your manager as a gunner?
Everyone has been asking the questions, how would Arsenal cope with the loss of their star boy, Bukayo Saka? And so far they've answered those questions very positively. He's found options. Two players who have really been tasked with stepping up in the absence of Saka, Gabriel Jesus and Gabriel Martinelli. They've both been very productive, both of them scoring in the game today against a difficult Brentford side, a team who've only lost once at home. So both of them looking hungry, ready to seize the opportunity. And then we have, of course, the young academy prodigy in Ranieri stepping up and really seizing his moment, producing again a very, very bright performance, showing the Premier League that he's ready. But Arsenal, they have to be happy. They found answers in a moment when there are a lot of questions. So well done to Arteta for coming up with solutions.
Yeah, well done to Arteta. I think what he's doing in the midfield as well, Partey is sort of in and out of the side. We saw Mikel Merino play against Brentford. We saw Kai Havertz in the last game. Havertz was not in the matchday squad today, so hopefully he's okay. But Arteta's finding solutions in the midfield and showing that there's depth and quality, right? Players coming in and the level not dropping at all. And this is different from what I usually say when Jorginho comes into the side. I see a dip in the control of the game from the Arsenal midfield. I think Arteta maybe he saw the same thing and he hasn't brought him in this festive period that much. And I think Arsenal have benefited from rotating with different players. And I think with the arrival of Miles Lewis-Skelly also on the left and rotating with Calafiori, Zinchenko, now pushed almost to the to the periphery of the squad. It just makes you feel like there's a little bit more depth in Arsenal than even just a couple months back. Hats off to Arteta, and maybe brighter days are ahead. And now Arsenal's in second place with a little bit of breathing room.
We talk about the top four now. I know you're a big fan of this Nottingham Forest team who are really achieving great things in third place.
I just wanted to give a shout to Nuno Espírito Santo, former Wolves manager, former Tottenham manager, who got booted out of Tottenham after not being given really a chance to show what he could do. He's coming to Forest. Last season, a team that was struggling in a relegation battle. He was able to save them, keep them in the Premier League, and they've just been flying this season. They're the only team that's won all 5 of their last fixtures, and we know how difficult that is to do. And you just have to credit his connection with his players and his ability to see something in players that maybe other managers wouldn't see. So he's got a good center back pairing with Murillo and Milenkovic.
Murillo's been a revelation to me, actually. I've watched him. I think he's been fantastic, actually, this season.
The young Brazilian. He's catching on, right? We would expect the bigger teams to come in for him in the next window, maybe a window after that. We see Aina on the right, Nico Williams on the left. Sometimes that's Morata, sometimes that's Ali Moreno, who's on loan from Villa. So strong there. I think they were very savvy to bring in Elliot Anderson from Newcastle, who didn't quite make the grade in their midfield, but doing quite well. And for Nottingham Forest, that is. And then their captain, Ryan Yates. Oftentimes I would see him wearing the armband and not know, why is he the leader of this team? But he's got plenty of industry desire, plays like a leader, and Nuno has given him the confidence, and he's grown into that role. And of course, Morgan Gibbs-White playing as a 10, pulling the strings, and then you have the legs, if you will, with Elanga and Hudson-Odoi on the flanks, causing trouble for defenses, and then you have the silver-haired, effervescent player in Chris Wood, who's in the renaissance of his career, playing better than he ever has. And you have to credit the manager for giving him the confidence, having the confidence in him, because I think we all probably saw Iwani, the strong number 9, coming through at Forest, who we thought was going to be playing, but Chris Wood has been able to keep him out of the team. You have to credit Nuno for making those decisions. And then one other decision that I haven't talked about is the goalkeeper, Mateus Sells. Forest have been through a few goalkeepers in the last couple of seasons, and Nuno is the one who made the decision to bring this player in and to start him, and he's been one of the most solid keepers in the league. So front to back, a very, very solid team with very good structure, very difficult to beat, right? And I think when you want to climb the table, make the team difficult to beat, and then allow your skilled players the ability to express themselves on the pitch. And I think that's essentially what Forest do. They make teams work hard, and then when they get the ball, they spray it out to their wingers quickly or get it to Morgan Gibbs-White, and they just let them create. And we're seeing it pay dividends. So props to Nuno, and I think he does deserve a shout from the Premier League for at least manager of the month, and he'll be contending if he continues at this rate for manager of the season come end of the season, if he's able to finish in a European place, which would be a great achievement for Forest. All right, that's a wrap, Premier Bros. Looking forward to this weekend of fixtures. The big one, Tottenham at home against Newcastle, and we'll be back to break it down.